Let me start by just describing a little bit about my understanding of different subtypes of depression. Very briefly, I mentioned earlier that depression, I think of it in three distinct categories or subtypes. Those who have an anxious depression, those who have an agitated depression with lots of more anger and irritability, and then those who have a sluggish depression with more lethargy and lack of motivation. So those three types have different things going on with their brain chemistry, I believe. Then with Ayurveda, Ayurvedic medicine, the medicine that comes from India, ancient system, but they have a beautiful way of thinking about different mind-body types that they call the doshas, the dosha system. There are three basic forms: Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, which I refer to a little differently. I call the Vata the air type, the Pitta the fire type, and Kapha the earth type. And so thinking about the different forms of depression that I mentioned, anxiety is very close to what is described as an imbalance in Vata, or the air type, where people their mind gets kind of speeded up, they get kind of anxious and nervous and fretful, wanting to move all the time. Everything's happening kind of quickly, everything seems speeded up. That's an imbalance in a Vata type. The imbalance in Pitta, or fire type, sounds very much like an agitated depression, where a person becomes more angry or irritable. They have too much energy, but it comes out in a sort of an uncomfortable way, a little bit of an agitated sense. Very often they're looking at things in their environment or people around them in a way that's critical, kind of harsh or rejecting. That's very similar then to what happens when a Pitta body type becomes imbalanced. The third type, the Kapha, or earth type, when that gets imbalanced, people become sluggish, lethargic, wanting to sleep too much, gaining weight, accumulating, not having much energy at all. And that's very similar then to what I call a sluggish depression. And for many people, that's what happens with them in the winter, with a winter depression. Those three different types are what I've described are the imbalances. But one of the things I like so well about Ayurveda is that it also tells us what's it like when you're healthy and balanced, and recognizing that not everyone is the same. We're not all built the same. If you are a balanced Vata, you generally have a body type that's kind of thin, sort of tall or thin or lean, and you're very quick. You're quick of mind, quick of wit. Body moves quickly, but still it doesn't get into that pattern of anxious, ruminative thinking. If you have a Pitta or fire type and you're balanced, then you tend to be kind of medium build, tend to be athletic, somewhat competitive, but not over the top, very sharp of mind, and often make a good leader. The third type, the Kapha type, in balance, are people who tend to move a little more slowly, you could say elegantly. Their mind isn't as quick, but they retain information. They hold on to things, and they're very loyal. They're stable people, and they tend to make great co-workers, great friends, great partners when they're in balance. They don't get overly sluggish, but they do kind of glide through life, without a great deal of stress. So those are those in balance. And then the Ayurveda gives us suggestions for how to keep in balance. Depending on your type, there are different practices, different spices, different foods that you can use that will help you stay in balance depending on your own nature. Thinking about yourself with your Ayurvedic subtype, there are several good questionnaires, by the way. I have some in my book. You can find questionnaires online that will help you determine your dosha type, dosha or Ayurvedic type. I've given brief descriptions, but there are questionnaires that help refine that. If you understand that and then you combine that with a mindfulness practice so that you're living in a way and eating in a way that is true to your nature, and you're working with your mind, calming your mind, learning to turn toward your emotions and let yourself really experience your emotions in a full and healthy way, and also learning to open, practicing opening yourself, connecting with others, really creating a good heart. Those things are so protective against depression. If you can stay with them for 6 or 12 months, I tell my patients, if you can stay with these practices for that long, you can create a very different brain, a very different internal state that can give you a long-term prevention against depression.